If you guys know a thing or two about modern Russia, then you might know that Russian politicians and Russian propaganda pundits, who claim that they hate the West and everything that it represents, actually really love Western fashion. For example, Vladimir Putin really loves the Italian luxury fashion house Loro Piana. And in March of 2022, at the major propaganda concert in Russia, Putin showed up wearing a $14,000 Loro Piana puffer jackets. Yes, truly a president who is not disconnected at all from his people, especially when it comes to, their wealth and everything. Or for example, do you guys remember Shaman, the Russian propaganda singer? Well, he has also been spotted singing in front of Russian soldiers in the Donbass wearing Balenciaga boots. So obviously guys, this is a terrible situation, but what if I told you guys that Russia actually has its own patriotic fashion? Or maybe I should say propaganda fashion. And obviously, since a lot of Western fashion brands have left Russia after the start of the war in Ukraine, Russia really needs to make its own drip. What is up guys, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video guys, we're gonna take a look at Russian propaganda clothing and also react to the recent Moscow Fashion Week which just took place in Russia, which was, how do I say this, probably the most Z fashion week I've ever seen in my entire life. So yes guys, before we take a look at this glorious Z Fashion Week that took place in Moscow, first of all I want to tell you guys about the biggest Russian propaganda clothing brand that currently exists, and that brand is known as Putin Team. Vladimir Putin has his own clothing brand in Russia. Okay, well, not really. The brand actually directly doesn't belong to him, and as far as I understand, Vladimir Putin really doesn't get a say. Essentially, no, Putin is no Christian Dior. But yes, Putin Team is a real brand. For example, here we can see an advertisement of Putin Team on the website of Sheremetyevo International Airport in Moscow. So, yes guys, when foreigners arrive to Russia, the first thing they see in the airport is a clothing store of Putin Team, which is essentially the most insane show of like Putin's code of personality. And isn't that just great, you guys? Obviously a great first impression to leave on somebody. But yes, for example, here's how the Putin Team store looks like in the airport of Sheremetyevo. You see you can buy backpacks, Putin Team Russia. This is the inside of the store, here it says that it's made in Russia, very important. But basically, yes, what Putin Team is a sort of a patriotic brand that you can see uses a lot of, Russian colors and everything. And also is literally called Putin Team. So, I guess by wearing this brand, you're showing out there to the world that, you're part of the team of Vladimir Putin. Essentially, it's like wearing a t-shirt that says, I'm a war criminal on this. It's great. But yes, stores of Putin Team actually exist in a lot of Russian cities now. For example, here's the store Putin Team in Vnukovo Airport in Russia. And essentially, apparently this brand was created by some private company out of Yekaterinburg, but with the help of the Russian government, because obviously, nobody just gets to use the name Putin. The precious brand name of Vladimir Putin, no random person can use that name without approval, And here's essentially their website. I mean, I gotta be completely honest, most of their stuff is rather bland. I don't know, it looks like a sort of a Tommy Hilfiger sort of kind of rip-off almost. Except with a Russian spin on it, and obviously with, Putin's name on the thing, which is, the most important here. A ton of people want to wear this. No, they don't. These stores actually don't do too well, and believe it or not, guys, this shit is expensive. I mean, 5,000 rubles for a t-shirt? For a lot of Russians, this is a lot of money for a t-shirt. So I won't exactly say this brand is super popular or anything. But yes, most of it is basically very basic stuff with some sort of Russian theme. For example, here it says Russia, Russia, Russia. I searched my hardest on the website, I didn't find any Z symbolism or anything. But yes guys, now you know that Russia has a Vladimir Putin clothing brand. And I mean, what do I gotta say? This is unhinged. Totally doesn't show us that, the cult of personality of Vladimir Putin is reaching that of levels of, Soviet leaders, such as Stalin. No, definitely not. This is very normal, you guys. Now let's get to this Z Fashion Week in Moscow, which just took place on the first week of March of 2024 in Moscow, Russia. And basically, guys, what can I say? It was bad. Essentially, you guys have to realize that a lot of fashion designers, obviously, and models, etc., they have left Russia in the past few years, obviously, because Russia isn't exactly, the greatest place right now for, any sort of, I guess, artistic expression. I mean, at this point, guys, you make a fashion collection and then it turns out that one of your outfits apparently is promoting LGBT and you go to jail or something. This is what could happen at this point. So actually, funnily enough, a lot of the models that actually appeared on the runway during this Moscow Fashion Week were actually not like, actually attractive models or, skinny people. I mean, I don't know how to say it, guys. You know, fashion has a certain look to it, right? You have to look a certain way to be a fashion model. Well, what happened in Russia this year is that most of the models were basically either literal relatives of governmental officials. So, for example, the wife of the head of Roscosmos was present, for example, at the Fashion Week. It was essentially sort of a model there. Many other examples like this, but also Russian sellout Z celebrities also appeared as models on the runway, and I'm sorry, but certain people that were at the runway, for example, Alena Blin, like a Russian influencer YouTuber who's basically, you know, Z propagandist. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to body shame, but she doesn't exactly look cut out to be on the runway of a fashion show. Or, for example, another person that took part in this runway was Anastasia Volodchkova, a famous Russian ballerina, or I guess I should say maybe once famous Russian ballerina, now turned Z alcoholic. She was also at the runway. I mean, guys, at this point in Russia, in order to be a model, you don't need to go through a vetting process and have a certain look and be attractive or whatever, be skinny. No, you just have to be a Z propaganda pundit, and then you will be on the runway of Moscow Fashion Week. But by far the worst parts of the entire Moscow Fashion Week by far was this particular runway, how do I say, I don't know, performance, I don't know, look right here by the Russian propaganda singer Larisa Dolina. So this right here essentially was part of a collection called The Greats, made by a Russian designer, Jamal Mahmudov. Had his own fashion show and was presenting a collection entitled The Greats. We can see it here, for example, in the background of her walkout here on the runway. Yes, in the Russian tricolor, the Russian flag. She has a very, very interesting outfit on. And in the back here, you can see the logo of the collection, which is like the Russian coat of arms, and it says The Greats. Supposedly, this collection was supposed to like symbolize Catherine the Great or whatever, but obviously we all, you know, can read between the lines here. It's obviously, you know, about how great Russia is, the Russian Empire and everything. Although I do think that the choice of the colors, you know, black on top of red with white, I don't know, guys, you know, it does give me certain associations. It does invoke a particular memory. Not the best look, not the greatest choice in my opinion, you know, especially within the context of everything, how everybody who's taken parts in this is Z and is supporting the war in Ukraine, obviously, you know, not the greatest look, my guy, you know, you could have, you know, thought more about this one. And so yes, the person who actually walks out in this very particular interesting outfits on this very particular interesting, totally not, you know, not fascist colored, sort of color-coded runway show was Larisa Dolina, a Russian singer who's been like in the game for a while. And since the war started, she's been one of like the biggest voices of Z Russian patriotic music and stuff. For example, I already reacted to this on my channel. She's appeared in a collaboration music video with a ton of Russian artists and Shaman for the music video for her song Vstanem. This bitch is... Of course, yes, V. So yes, she's very, very Z. And also, Russian investigators actually found out that since the start of the war, she has received already almost 100 million rubles from the Russian government, essentially for her propaganda work.
Свободолюбивые народы, и мы, и народ Донбасса, не приемлем ни в каком виде диктат, нацизм, фашизм. Люди хотят, не люди, я не знаю даже, как их назвать, переписать историю. Мы не дадим этого сделать.
Because every single of these propaganda musicians does receive money from the government, obviously. And yes, essentially this was her outfit. She walks out in this sort of black, I don't know, some kind of gimp suits covered in pieces of like broken mirrors, I guess, or broken glass. Which is like, what even is this? What even is this supposed to signify? Because in Russia, actually, we have like a superstition about a broken mirror. And if you look into a broken mirror, or if you just break a mirror and look at it, you're gonna get 7 years of bad luck. So is this what, you know, she's trying to symbolize here? That Russia's gonna be fucked for 7 more years? I don't know, guys, but it's fucking terrible. She looks just awful. And, you know, nothing here has like any relation to fashion or anything. Like, this is just complete dog shit. Like, what is this? And I'm not just hating because it's the Russian flag, because in the context of fashion, you actually could make the Russian flag look cool. For example, in 2019, Vetements had a collection in which they featured jackets with the colors of the Russian, Ukrainian, and Georgian and American flags, which was rather interesting. And also they featured like sort of clothes that were based around like Russian military or Russian police clothing, etc., or the Russian flag. for a while and within the context of the brand of Vetements, which was started by Zemnak Vasalia, who is originally Georgian and he's now the director of Balenciaga, a lot of his stuff and a lot of his designs are based around this sort of post-Soviet or Soviet aesthetic. So with his brand and the aesthetic, like that stuff actually looked kind of cool and conceptual, but when it comes to this, I mean, this is just awful. You literally have a fucking absolutely irrelevant, barely like hanging on to dear life Z fucking sellout artist here that just looks like ass. In the worst outfit possible, just everything about this is just so tacky and corny. Yes guys, this is the state of Russian fashion in 2024. Also, another interesting story that I wanted to point out about this Russian Fashion Week is that an Italian actress, Ornella Muti, and her daughter, Nike Rivelli, never heard of them before, honestly, but supposedly they're famous. Well, supposedly they're like Z or whatever, and they took part in this fashion show also. And the actress Ornella Muti has been like Z and pro-Russian for a while. She's essentially kind of like Gerard Depardieu or, Steven Seagal and all of them, all these actors that are sucking up to Vladimir Putin and, got like Russian passports or whatever. So Ornella Muti's daughter, Nike Rivelli, also marched down the runway of another fashion show of another brand. And guys, I just want you to pay attention to, the dress that she's wearing, right? And I'm not doing this because, I'm like a Puritan or something, but it is a rather revealing dress, right? And the only reason why I'm pointing this out is because if you guys do keep up with my channel, if you watch my videos recently, I've been talking about this almost naked celebrity party that was thrown in Russia, in which basically a bunch of Russian influencers and music stars gathered in a private party and wore like slightly revealing outfits, and the entire point was that the dress code of the party was almost naked. And essentially all of the celebrities that were spotted at that party got completely cancelled and destroyed by the Russian governments. All of their concerts and tours and advertising campaigns, etc., everything started getting cancelled, and some of these Russian stars actually decided to visit, the Donetsk People's Republic and also make apologies video to basically say that they're terribly sorry that, they did such a terrible thing in the times of war, and that they promoted, LGBT and debauchery or whatever. But what I find hilarious, right, is that this Italian lady right here, right, that marched down a runway in Moscow Fashion Week, her dress that she's wearing on a runway might actually be more revealing than the dress that Nastya Ivleva, the organizer of this, infamous Russian celebrity party, wore at the actual party that turned into like the biggest scandal ever. So like my question here really is, it's really interesting how this stuff works in Russia, right? If a bunch of influencers and pop stars dress not too modestly, then we gotta cancel them and essentially make them turn extra Z. And what it turns to for Nastya Ivleva, for example, the organizer of the party, is that she actually had to promote Vladimir Putin at the upcoming election. But guys, at the same time, here we have, once again, an event that's taking place in Moscow, a far more public event, in fact, also in the times of war when our boys are dying on the front line, right? However, not a single person in the Russian government, who usually care about debauchery and LGBT propaganda care about this because, well guys, you don't understand, it's different. And the difference is because, well, essentially nobody got a call from up above telling them that we need to cancel these people for this bullshit reason in order to basically create more propaganda for our, like, Z narrative, right? So, absolutely amazing, guys. As always, I trust Russia to be a country in which the law and the scrutiny of the government applies equally to everybody across the board. Obviously, guys, that's totally how it is. But now, guys, having taken a look at that, we get into by far the worst part of this video, in my opinion. And I'll just play it for you guys for a little bit first, and then I'll explain what's happening here.
Вот бы справить мне костюм себе из Сталина, из мистического тела тверже стали, на сапоги и галифе в белом кителе, и летать бы в нем быстрее истребителя. Все херово поменялось все места.
Yes, guys, so this right here is, believe it or not, an ad campaign for a Russian clothing brand. And the person in the video is the head of a Russian pro-Kremlin media, Ridovka. And essentially, guys, yes, exactly what he's doing in this video is that he's advertising a particular coat right here, which is supposed to resemble the coat that Joseph Stalin used to wear, a particular white coat. So he's actually fully cosplaying Stalin here. He's, smoking a pipe and wearing this white coat. And worst of all, he's doing all of this. He's promoting this coat in the middle of destroyed Ukrainian cities. So, yes, I mean, I don't really even know, what do I need to comment on this? I swear to God, I just see these fucking things coming out of like the Russian Z community just get more and more insane and perverse with like every single passing day. But yes, guys, here it is. Here we are on the website of this brand that is actually ran by that exact person who was just in that video cosplaying as Joseph Stalin. Literally cosplaying a Georgian man, by the way. Like, the dickhead is crazy. So yes, essentially the guy was advertising his own clothing brands by walking around destroyed houses and destroyed streets of Ukraine. And here it is right here, the coat of Joseph Stalin himself. Right here, we can buy it for 44,000 rubles. And yes, guys, you can have that Stalin drip that you always wished for. What can I say, guys? Amazing, absolutely incredible, you know? Yes, let's bring this back, of course, Stalin. A guy who's, you know, sent millions and tens of millions of people to, like, gulag camps, and the result of whose policies literally led to millions of people starving. Yes, of course, great. I mean, at this point, guys, if this is what Russia is doing, you know, Germany should bring Hugo Boss back as the uniforms. You know what I'm saying? This is the exact same thing. I mean, like, I don't really get it. I don't. And essentially the point of this entire brand is that like they create sort of Russian themed clothing, you know? It's like a sort of a modern spin with modern, you know, craftsmanship and materials on the old Slavic looks and Slavic outfits, you know, Slavic outfits such as Joseph Stalin's coats. So here, for example, we have this right here, a kind of like Slavic kind of t-shirts. We also have a literal vatnik right here that comes at a price of 60,000 rubles. If you guys want to look like the stereotypical character that portrays, you know, stupid supporters of Vladimir Putin, there you go. Just 60,000 rubles and it can be you. So yes, guys, you might think that, you know, sort of bringing back the cult of personality of Stalin and whatever is pretty bad. And you guys might think that recording an advertisement for your own clothing brands where you're trying to walk around and cosplay as Stalin while you're literally walking around like destroyed apartment buildings in Ukraine is pretty bad, yes. And it's absolutely shockingly abhorrent. Absolutely fuck you. But that's not all of it, guys, because actually, these clothes are already getting rather popular. For example, not that long ago, recently, the governor of the Kaliningrad region, Anton Alikhanov, has recently been spotted wearing this exact Stalin coat from this exact brands on one of his, you know, public appearances or whatever. So, yes, guys, now not only are, you know, insane Z morons from Twitter or Telegram or whatever wearing this type of shit, no, it's also literal Russian governmental officials. And I guess this just shows to us, right, the kind of values and the kind of, you know, outlook a lot of Russian politicians have on the world where, to them, you know, the legacy of Joseph Stalin and, you know, wearing a coat that is supposed to resemble a coat of Joseph Stalin is like an epic win. And it's an epic, you know, cool look. Whereas obviously it's fucking insane. And it obviously shows how absolutely fucking backwards this country is going. But yes, guys, once again, totally normal stuff today in Russia. At this point, yeah, bring Hugo Boss back because like... This is what the fuck they're doing. And essentially currently right now in Russia, like I said, a lot of Western brands are leaving. These are fast fashion brands like Zara, H&M, etc. But also luxury brands are also leaving Russia. So Russia is sort of in a dire need to replace, you know, Western clothing with its own, you know, patriotic versions. And yes, in the recent times in Russia, there's been a lot of these, you know, sort of patriotic brands appearing that are supposed to bring back the look of like classic Slavic or, you know, traditional based, you know, anti-gay, anti-Western culture, right? And the reason for that is because, well, the Russian government is actually currently paying people to do this. The thing is, in Russia, essentially, if you want to start a business that will directly feed into the Russian propaganda, you can actually get funding from the Russian government to support that business. And this is exactly what's happening here. Just recently in 2023 and 2024, Russia has started allocating government funds to certain programs of promoting the cultural essence of traditional culture of Russia or whatever, you know? So, quite obviously to me, stuff like this and, you know, quotes of Joseph Stalin are pretty much exactly following this exact, you know, program of the Russian government. So, yes, Russia wants to promote the idea of its traditional, you know, old culture within the Russian people, but also at the same time, Vladimir Putin will continue to wear Loro Piana and work out in Laura Piana cashmere sweatpants that are worth 1.5k euros. Yes, very normal, very logical. Russia is a country of very honest politicians. But the thing is, guys, at the end of the day, once again, people who actually have money and who actually can afford nice clothing, they want clothing made in the West. And Russians, especially rich Russians, especially corrupt Russian politicians, they all love Western luxury, they love Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga, Loro Piana. They love all that shit, and also, even the regular Russian people, they would still prefer Western clothing most of the time to, you know, whatever the fuck this is. And especially, obviously, when it comes to, like, the young generation of Russians, I mean, pretty much, young Russians are trying to be like everybody else, you know, we're rocking whatever, Balenciaga, fucking, basically all the stuff that Western kids want and, like, drool over because their favorite rap stars are wearing, that kind of stuff. Russians are doing the exact same thing. Russians also love, like, Rick Owens or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So basically, I really don't think that the Russian government is gonna have a lot of success into convincing the Russian youth to switch Rick Owens for Stalin's coat, you know? And this is exactly what I talked about in one of my recent videos about how Russians actually love the West, is that despite the fact that Russia is trying really hard right now with its propaganda and with its money to sort of switch something in the brains of Russian people and make them hate everything Western and love everything Russian, it's not really happening because at the end of the day, Russians still really appreciate Western things and they still really long for it. So yes, very funny fashion week, you know, it was fun to look at these Z outfits, but nobody's gonna wear this shit, guys. Absolutely zero people. Maybe just except for, you know, some unhinged Z people who hang out around, you know, Z Telegram chats or whatever. But even then, guys, you know, when a vatnik costs 60,000 fucking rubles, most of Putin's supporters are completely fucking broke, let's be completely honest. They can't even afford it anyway, so this Russian propaganda clothing, pretty much everything else that Russia produces these days to promote a Z message is absolutely awful and will be forgotten in the next, like, few years. That is my take as a certified fashion connoisseur. But anyways, guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video, though. If you guys enjoyed this little tour into the world of Russian Z fashion, then please make sure to smash the like button in this video, and also, guys, if you would like to support me additionally, and that is financially, then make sure to go over to the link down in the description and become a YouTube member. It's basically like YouTube's own version of Patreon, it's a monthly donation type of thing, and it's the best way to support me. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, you can also do a super thanks underneath this video. But yeah, guys, once again, thank you for watching this video, and thank you for all of the support recently, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.